We are all glad to be associated with launch of SACOSAN 6 today on 11th of January in Dhaka. So many important political elite from South Asian countries, the ministers and the bureaucrats have all gathered to once again review the sanitation situation in South Asia, and hopefully they will come up with more concrete commitments to end sanitation crisis in the region. It was a bit disappointing to note that the Pakistan delegation could not arrive, but I was also happy to see a communication from the focal point of government of Pakistan, Mr. Irfan, stating that although they are not able to join for SACOSAN 6, they are very much committed to take forward the SACOSAN process, and also reiterated their commitment to host SACOSAN 7. Although countries made presentations, elaborate presentations, talking about what they are doing on sanitation in their countries, there was no specific reference made to the 10 commitments that are signed in SACOSAN 5. I think in that context, the traffic lights paper produced by FANSA is of high importance, because we have very precisely looked at the 10 commitments of SACOSAN 5, and progress achieved by each country has been very well measured following a very systematic process. Though there was a written commitment from the SACOSAN Secretariat to FANSA saying that we will be given 20-minute slot in the plenary on the first day after all the 8 country reports are presented to present the traffic lights paper. Unfortunately, it has been dropped in the last minute, and then we really had to do a lot of lobbying, meeting personally representatives of each government delegation and pushing them to allow the presentation on the traffic lights paper. Civil society meeting that happened on 10th of January in YWCA in Dhaka provided good opportunity for all of us to come together to understand what is the structure of the SACOSAN 6, what are the different technical sessions that are coming up in SACOSAN 6, different side events and all key events happening in SACOSAN 6. And with that understanding, as civil society organizations, what are the key messages or issues that we want to advocate in these different technical sessions and side events could be discussed and agreed upon, and responsibility has been shared among the different participants from the civil society side. I think this is the kind of preparation very much required for effectively engaging civil society in the important decision-making platforms such as SACOSAN. Most important issue in South Asia is reaching sanitation services to the excluded communities, to the people living in challenging geographical situations, people living under poverty conditions, people living with disability, people living in disaster-prone areas. I think there is a lot of work to be done in terms of reaching sanitation services to these most vulnerable communities. And more importantly, the civil society organizations have organized a series of consultation meetings with these excluded constituencies across South Asia. A representative group of these constituencies would be raising their voices. FANSA has carried out a review of past 12 years SACOSAN process. What value the SACOSAN process has really added in terms of improving sanitation situation in South Asia. Based on that, giving a kind of strategic direction for future SACOSANs. So that exercise has been an important contribution from FANSA side.
This is the forum where we can review the achievement and non-achievement, as well as to focus on the SDGs target. So our focus will be on the regional basis, where we are now and what we have to do and what are the targets in the SDGs, so that we can combinedly or unitedly make the action plans to achieve the SDG targets within the stipulated time frame.
And that is very important, that we are at this point of going from MDGs to SDGs, going from just ODF or to safe management of excreta. That is very important. And while doing that, it's also important to look back at what we have achieved. And it's very important, of course, to get all the inputs on what all the countries are doing and so on. But collectively, once we commit something, it's very important that we reflect on our commitments.
Hundreds and thousands and millions in our part of the world. So I think now, just trying to be very clear. By this afternoon, when we leave this hall, when we leave this city, when we leave this country, I think we must go back with a strong commitment and with a kind of action plan that when we go back to our own countries, how do we ensure that the needs, the rights are made of these people and their dignity is respected. We give them dignity. It's your right. They deserve it. It's not that something we have to keep from our pocket, So we are just respecting the rights of the people. How do we do that? How do we ensure that? How do we get into action? And I think a strong commitment is very required, and I just hope that this is reflected, come out very strongly in the declaration of this conference.
Our commitments to improve the standards of life have, by leaps and bounds, gone ahead. In this process, it is now time for us to set up a secretariat to manage and monitor the progress of our movement. Towards this, the Sri Lankan government is pleased to set up a secretariat at our own expense so that the future SACOSAN conferences could be serviced and conducted in an orderly manner.
Going forward, I think it's an opportunity for all of us to review and look at how we can use this platform even more effectively, and that, I would imagine, should come from a greater willingness to address the issues in greater depth, particularly the issue around access and reach of those living on the margins of our society, and therefore coming up with approaches and solutions that help us to tackle this long pending challenge in our region.
I think it is the ICWG now to take this discussion forward and make the SACOSAN rearrange if necessary and consider how to bring more fresh ideas to this conference and make the profile of SACOSAN forward.
बातें जो आई हैं वो भारत के लिए और बाकी सभी साउथ एशियन कंट्रीज़ के लिए एक मार्गदर्शक के रूप में काफ़ी यूज़फुल रहेंगी। SDG जो सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स बनाए गए हैं उसके तहत जो टारगेट है कि एक फिक्स्ड टाइमलाइन में हमें इम्प्रूव्ड सैनिटेशन और ओपन डेफिकेशन फ्री की तरफ जाना है, तो वो एक कलेक्टिव कमिटमेंट है जो एक लाइट पोस्ट की तरह हम सबके सामने रहेगी। दूसरा, हम ये कह रहे हैं कि हम लोगों को साथ लेकर पीपल ड्रिवन अप्रोचेस, कम्युनिटी अप्रोचेस, इसको एम्फेसाइज करेंगे। तीसरा, अर्बन सैनिटेशन पे भी इस बार बात हुई है। अर्बनाइज इंडिया काफ़ी कर रहा है, दूसरे कंट्रीज़ में भी अर्बनाइजेशन बढ़ रही है। किस तरह से हम इसको और प्रायोरिटी दें और स्लम्स और ये सब एरियाज़ में भी हम लोगों को साथ लेके कुछ सल्यूशन सैनिटेशन के ढूंढ सकें। चौथा, ये बात हुई है कि कम्युनिटी अप्रोच की जब हम बात करते हैं उसमें जो बिल्कुल वल्नरेबल लास्ट लेग कुछ लोग हैं, स्पेशली इन ए कंट्री लाइक इंडिया जहाँ पे बहुत सारी कास्ट्स हैं, बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं, बहुत सारे रिलीजन्स हैं, उसमें कुछ ऐसे लोग छूट ना जाएं जो जहाँ तक कई बार पहुँचना मुश्किल होता है। तो ये इस बात को फिर से रीट्रेट किया गया है कि हम निरंतर रूप से एक दूसरे से सीखने का कुछ मैकेनिज़्म बनाएं। एक साल में एक बार सिर्फ डिक्लेरेशन हो और उसके बाद उसकी बात ना हो, ऐसा नहीं। किस तरह से हम अलग अलग जगह जो सब CSOs काम कर रही हैं, और क्या एक प्लेटफॉर्म हो, आजकल सोशल मीडिया है, ICT है, किस तरह से हम ऑन अ मिनट टू मिनट बेसिस आपस में शेयर कर सकें अपनी इनोवेशंस, अपनी लर्निंग्स, because solutions have to come from all of us.
Do that more, and also between SACOSANs, I think we need to sit and gather ourselves and monitor as we go, not just every 2 years, But, yes, we all come together for this big event every 2 years, but maybe every year or so there should be a smaller group looking at the progress and, giving, say, traffic signals.
These SACOSAN conferences are going on for last 12 years, and now we require to revisit it and set a new course for next SDG period. We also organized a grassroots voice session that was also very successful, well attended, and also the traffic lights paper that was produced by FANSA and was also presented in a plenary. So I think as far as the conference is concerned, we are set to go ahead, and in next period of time, we feel we will more discuss on new generation technologies, wastewater and fecal sludge management, and also increasing community participation in all these efforts.
State which has achieved almost 97 to 98% toilet coverage, which is very good in terms of numbers, but because we didn't proceed with a prosperous strategy, I would say, we are having a tough time dealing with the fecal sludge management, and most of our groundwater is polluted. And my only observation is that in the rush to complete or showcase the numbers, we shouldn't be going for very ad hoc solution management. But from Kerala experience, what I can say is that solid waste management, if it is handled very poorly, will have more long-term and more devastating effects than liquid waste management, and on water bodies, on soil and everything.
Citizens to protect the environment, to bring this improved sanitation system, those are still not really well taken up, because it is totally different from urban and rural. Because in rural, of course, people are organized and they are community group. They have a community development committee, and also local small CBOs. NGOs also are very much active in rural. But if you come to the urban, that is totally different. Scenario totally different. So a lot of development projects are going on in urban, but the role of citizen is more or less, I would say, not really actively engaged, and which is totally depends upon the person itself. So without engagement of a citizen, without involvement and also investment as well, because not just government or state cannot invest a lot of money for improving the sanitation system. So people should also invest. There should be a market-driven approach. All those issues are there.
She's just comparing Afghanistan with the other region countries, that how they are suffering and how they cope with the problems they have had in their countries, and she's taking the experience from here, and she'd like to deliver it for the people.
It's also our honor starting the partnership with FANSA, who came in Kabul and started engagement of CSOs very actively in the sector. And it's also our pleasure that in this conference our community representatives are also here talking about the most marginalized group, the community-based organizations. And this is also a good news for us to know that we've not been so far engaging a big part of the communities, that they should have the right to be engaged. And from the government point of view, we welcome such a contribution and participation. The good thing that I liked is the traffic light paper. And I like it because as a government, somebody should look to our activities and tell us where we are doing strong and where we have our gaps and challenges. So that will enable us to look back to our achievements and make our own self ready to do better and further. So that's my perception, and I do hope that traffic light paper monitoring and such engagement in the conference should continue and get further improvements.
Present the voice from Modi's side. So it has been a very interesting session. We just finished the community voice session. So far everything went everything we found well. So I find the SACOSAN process further get improved for our betterment of life in this region.
When I attend the meeting, the session of ministerial hygiene, I hearing this that when the ministerial period, I use I can cook, I can I will can cook, I will can touch mail, I will can participate religion function, but the before I don't I have no sense about this, but attending this session I have this sense, and I will go on my home, and I after going home I will tell my this sense my mother, my friends, my committee. I want to break the table.
For the past 19 years of my public service, I have been associated with issues of sanitation in the states of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh of India, and I have dealt with the issues pertaining to particularly women, differentially abled, and perhaps the marginalized and the voiceless. SACOSAN is a reminder for us towards our commitment towards sanitation.
Good is also that there is a third alternative, third space for civil society voices through things like traffic light papers, through things like bringing the voices of the marginalized, elderly, disabled, who can actually really inform what's happening on the ground against all the commitments. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to reaffirm those processes, but link them clearly in the declarations which we are going to sign off to the ministers today.
The voices of poor people, of people who are marginalized, the people for whom toilets are not accessible for all sorts of reasons. Those have been prominent here. It was very moving and inspiring to hear them. That was the first one. The second one is that the level of sharing of innovations, insights and issues has been better. I think there has been more of it, and it's possibly even been more.
I have learned that the country of us is not developed so high, but the other country is so developed than ours. I have learned that how the way we use toilet, water and other things, and I will say the committee, the other people that I had learned.
People who are unreached, especially like by providing sanitation facilities for menstruating women, for disabled people, and these are quite very important topics to reach universal access. And in urban sanitation also I found it very useful, especially more and more discussion on fecal sludge management.
Well, it was a morning session and very few people attended here. Like whenever we used to discuss our session, but we hope there are many other people there. It is an international conference, many ministers have come here, many other people here to meet. And this is the way our minister and policy makers will learn from other colleagues, and they will incorporate in this in their policy.
मैले आफ्नो देशमा गएर त्यही अनुसार चाहिँ काम गर्न, आफ्नो समूहमा गएर चाहिँ काम गर्न सक्छु भन्ने चाहिँ मलाई लागेको छ.
We firmly believe that the objective which was set for this conference, I think that has been met very successfully. And the Dhaka Declaration has depicted all these objectives which were set forward for this SACOSAN 6, and we are hopeful that we will be in line with the SACOSAN Dhaka Declaration to make SACOSAN 6 as a success.
I
participated and with some of our colleagues in the slum areas where I thought it's good to see in the separately. So I went there and observed the slum areas, and some places I found water supply available there. So the water supply is supported by some other organization, which was good. And I saw that these people were fetching water, washing clothes and bathing. That was a good part I saw in the slum area also. But regarding the toilet, this is terrible I saw, because they have constructed a toilet very simple way. The raising the toilet and but simple pit type of toilet, and which is one hand, yes, they can use the toilet, but on the other hand, it is terrible, because that is a kind of, it's not open defecation, but a kind of open defecation, because that is everyone, defecating there is open place.
What's most exciting to me as a member of a civil society organization is this undercurrent of increased political will. I think we have civil society organizations to thank for increased political will for sanitation and water across South Asia, and a key component of that is ongoing monitoring. SACOSAN started in 2003. This is the 6th meeting. We all need to do a better job, both in the government and in civil society organizations.
And particularly the water and sanitation impact on health, on education, but specifically among marginalized groups, looking at waste pickers, looking at sanitation workers themselves, looking at transgender community, looking broadly at adolescent girls, looking at the disabled, the elderly, and the constituencies of these different groups, how these populations are organized, and looking at ways to link FANSA, particularly, and its organizational structures, how it can be more accountable to these different organized groups, whether these are trade unions of waste pickers, or they are trade unions of sanitation workers, or they are organized groups of tea pickers. How can these organizational structures be linked to FANSA?
I think SACOSAN has come a long way. I think since it started in 2003, this is 2015, and as a country, although I'm participating for the first time, I can see the level of participation, and this has helped us to advocate by and large the sanitation subject in our country as well. With regard to the monitoring process, I think traffic light has contributed a lot. I think it's important that we have a strong monitoring system in place, and this is basically the first step. And it's very simple in nature. We can at a glance see how the country is progressing. And in the future, I wanted to see this kind of initiative through traffic light process being integrated into the conference.
Government, the senior government officials and civil society and others are not necessarily communicating with each other in those sessions. Also, during the framing of the declaration, I think only a part of the government delegation has been involved. It might have been better to involve the rest of the government delegation and to get their inputs. At least this has been the feedback from some of the senior government officials.
We have captured their silent and powerful testimonies visually to remind us that we cannot do business as usual. Today you will see some of them. They will just speak to you to summarize what you will hear much more in more detail.
हाम्रो आवश्यकता सुन्नु, हाम्रो आवश्यकता आदर गर्नु, हामीलाई निर्णय गर्न दिनु र हामी बिना काम नगर्नु।
আমাদের কথা শোনো, আমাদের চাহিদাকে সম্মান করো, চলো সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়ে আমাদের ছাড়া কাজ করো না।
Listen to us, respect our needs, let us decide, and do not act without us.